From this point forward, the message is simple. If the United States is drawn into a conflict, it intends to prevail. It is 4:16 p.m. local time in the southern Caribbean Sea. The water is calm, the air is clear, and the horizon shows no sign of rough weather or heavy traffic. On the surface, everything looks ordinary, like another uneventful passage through international waters, but appearances can be misleading. Inside the Combat Information Center of a U.S. Navy warship, the crew is focused on what matters most: movement, patterns, vectors, and behavior. Radar operators are not looking at scenery. They are watching for changes that do not fit the normal rhythm of the sea. Then the first irregular contact appears. A moment later, another. Within seconds, 6 surface returns light up the scope from different directions, all moving toward the same general track. Any one of them on its own might seem routine. Together, they form a pattern every experienced Navy watchstander understands immediately. This is not random. The contacts are quickly identified as Venezuelan Navy warships. They are medium displacement vessels, older but operational, and now moving with clear coordination. At first, their speed is unremarkable, about 12 knots, typical for patrol movement. Then, without warning, all 6 accelerate together, not one after another, all at once. Their speed climbs to 18 knots, then 20. Their course lines tighten. The formation compresses, spreading laterally while continuing to press forward. It is a familiar maneuver, not an outright attack, but a deliberate challenge. A calculated move meant to test reaction and resolve. The officer of the deck is informed immediately. So is the bridge. At more than 20 nautical miles away, there is no immediate physical danger. But that is not the real issue. What matters now is intent, and with every passing second, that intent becomes easier to read. Standard procedures begin. The U.S. ship holds course and speed. No sudden maneuvers, no deviation. That choice is intentional. Under international maritime law, changing course first could be interpreted as yielding. The U.S. Navy does not yield lawful passage in international waters. A radio call is prepared and transmitted on the open bridge-to-bridge frequency. This is a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. Identify your intentions. The call is made in English, then repeated in Spanish. There is no response. That silence is meaningful. If this were simply a navigational misunderstanding, someone would answer. If it were routine shadowing, there would at least be acknowledgement. Silence suggests the message was heard and deliberately ignored. Back in CIC, the analysts sharpen the picture. The 6 Venezuelan ships are no longer behaving like separate vessels. They are moving as a coordinated group. 2 slide slightly toward the left flank, 2 mirror them on the right. The remaining pair stays forward, adjusting heading to reduce the closest point of approach. It is textbook pressure geometry. No targeting systems are active, no fire control radar is detected. Everything remains just below the level of overt hostility. This is the gray zone where political signaling hides behind precise maneuvering at sea. The range continues to close, 14 nautical miles, then 12. Projected closest approach drops below 3 nautical miles if no course changes are made. For ships of this size and speed, that is uncomfortably close. Close enough to force choices. Still, the U.S. ship remains steady. On the bridge, the atmosphere stays calm and professional. Orders are brief, clear, and recorded. Cameras are already running. Electro-optical systems track hull numbers, deck activity, and crew movement. Every frame is time-stamped, geolocated, and saved. This is not about drama. It is about documentation. Another radio hail goes out, more direct this time. Venezuelan naval vessels, you are conducting unsafe maneuvers. Alter course immediately. Again, English. Again, Spanish. Again, no reply. Then CIC confirms the key detail. All 6 Venezuelan warships have now adjusted speed to match the U.S. vessel's vector. They are not passing behind. They are not overtaking. They are matching. That removes any doubt. They are not simply transiting. They are not conducting an ordinary patrol. They are deliberately challenging a U.S. Navy warship in international waters. The captain is informed. He does not raise his voice or hurry the moment. He asks a single question. Are we inside any territorial waters? The answer comes immediately. No, sir. Well clear. International. That is all he needs. The rules are clear. The mission remains the same. The response will be controlled, proportional, and unmistakable. The U.S. Navy does not act recklessly, but it also does not step back from lawful presence. As the 6 Venezuelan ships continue closing in, the posture changes. This is no longer simple observation. It is a test, a probe, a calculation. And the next move will determine whether this stays a pressure encounter or becomes something much more serious. By 4:23 p.m. local time, the distance keeps shrinking. To an untrained observer, it might still look uneventful. No flashing alarms, no hard turns, no visible targeting, just ships moving across open water. But inside CIC, the picture tells another story. The Venezuelan formation is now inside 10 nautical miles. It has settled into a stable pattern. 2 ships hold the left arc, 2 mirror them to the right. The last pair keeps steady pressure from ahead. It is not a blockade in the formal sense. It is something more subtle, a moving box designed to shape the available space without clearly violating legal thresholds. Classic gray zone behavior. The U.S. ship remains on course, speed unchanged, heading locked. Any deviation now would signal reaction, and reaction is exactly what the opposing side appears to want. Another update comes in. Closest point of approach, 2.6 nautical miles. At current speed, that margin will disappear quickly. Enhanced surface tracking is ordered. Long-range optics zoom tighter. Infrared and electro-optical systems fix on each Venezuelan hull. Deck crews are visible on at least 3 ships. Helmets on, personnel moving along the rails. No visible handling of mounted systems. But movement itself is information. Every second is recorded. Electronic warfare operators confirm passive emissions only. The Venezuelan ships are not actively illuminating the U.S. vessel with fire control radar. That matters. It keeps the encounter just below the threshold that would justify immediate escalation. Just below. Another radio call is sent, sharper and shorter. Venezuelan naval vessels, you are approaching a United States warship at an unsafe distance. State your intentions. Silence again. No interference. No broken audio, just silence. By now, that silence is no longer ambiguous. It is deliberate. At 7 nautical miles, the Venezuelan formation adjusts once more. Speeds become even more synchronized. The left flank pair drifts inward, reducing lateral separation. The right flank pair mirrors the move. The forward pair holds steady, narrowing the corridor ahead. Not enough to trap, enough to apply pressure. Inside CIC, one watchstander says it plainly. "They're shaping us, sir." The captain nods. He already understands. Rules of engagement are reviewed again, not because they are uncertain, but because discipline matters. Everyone on board knows the order. Warn, show presence, document everything, and do not escalate unless absolutely required. This is where many encounters at sea go wrong. One impatient move, one misread signal, one rushed decision. The U.S. Navy trains precisely to avoid that. At 5 nautical miles, the tension tightens. A Venezuelan ship off the starboard side adds a single knot, just enough to reduce separation without appearing openly aggressive. Its bow angle shifts inward by a few degrees. Not a collision path, but close enough to send a message. The bridge logs the change. CIC timestamps it. Optical systems zoom tighter still. Hull numbers are crisp, deck layouts are visible, antennas, bridge windows, crew positions, all clear. This is no longer only a standoff. It is evidence gathering in real time. The U.S. ship does not answer with speed or intimidation. It answers with posture. A subtle internal shift is ordered. Not a turn, not a retreat, but a change in sensor priority. Systems move from passive observation to assertive awareness. Nothing dramatic from the outside, but inside the ship, every system is fully alert. At 4 nautical miles, the officer of the deck says quietly, "This is deliberate." No one disagrees. The Venezuelan ships maintain formation. No radio explanation, no flags, no clarification. They are now close enough that small mistakes could have serious consequences. A steering error, a poorly judged closure rate, even the movement of heavy hulls in open water can become hazardous at this distance. And still, the U.S. ship remains composed. No warning shots, no sirens, no hard turns, just lawful presence and control. The captain decides it is time for the next phase. Not escalation, not confrontation, control. When pressure alone fails to move a situation, the U.S. Navy has another option. One that does not require a single round to be fired, yet sends a message no one can miss. At 4:31 p.m. local time, the encounter crosses an important threshold. The Venezuelan ships are now close enough that every action from this point forward will matter. Not just at sea, but later in reports, legal reviews, intelligence assessments, and diplomatic conversations far from the Caribbean. The U.S. ship does not accelerate. It does not turn away. It does not raise its tone. Instead, it changes posture again. Inside CIC, the captain authorizes the next step on the ladder, aviation presence. On the flight deck, the order moves quickly and quietly. The deck crew works with practiced precision. No shouting, no panic, just hand signals, helmets secured, routines executed exactly as trained. The Seahawk helicopter is brought to readiness. Its mission is simple: presence, observation, control. As rotor blades begin turning, the Venezuelan ships hold formation. From their decks, sailors can see the aircraft preparing. They know what that means. A helicopter changes the geometry of a maritime encounter instantly. It adds mobility, perspective, and vertical oversight. It expands the field and compresses uncertainty. At 4:34 p.m., the Seahawk lifts off. It climbs to a controlled altitude, then levels low over the water, keeping the U.S. warship between itself and the Venezuelan formation. Sensors come online. Forward-looking infrared, high-resolution optics, laser designator. Non-lethal, but impossible to ignore. From the air, the picture is complete. The Venezuelan ships are no longer only radar contacts. They are identifiable hulls with visible crews, command bridges, and clearly coordinated movement. The sensor operator reports calmly all contacts in visual recording. From that moment on, every second is preserved as evidence. The Seahawk first moves toward the left flank pair. Not directly overhead, which could appear provocative, but on a parallel path. Low, steady, and unmistakably marked as U.S. Navy. Then comes the radio call. Venezuelan naval vessels, this is a United States Navy aircraft. You are conducting unsafe maneuvers in international waters. Alter course immediately. English first, then Spanish. This time, there is a reaction. Not words, movement. One of the left flank ships shifts slightly outward. Only a few degrees, but enough to be noticed. Its speed drops by 1 knot. Not a retreat yet, but no longer a tightening move. The Seahawk holds position. Its laser designator activates briefly, casting a visible green mark across the bridge windows of the same ship. Not a threat, not force, a signal. A spotlight that says clearly, "You are seen." The helicopter circles once, smoothly and at a safe distance, maintaining visual dominance without appearing aggressive. Cameras capture everything: crew posture, deck reaction, course changes, hesitation. Back aboard the U.S. ship, CIC logs the change. On the right flank, the pattern repeats. The Seahawk transitions across the formation with the same measured calm. Another radio transmission follows. Your actions are being recorded. Maintain safe distance. One of the right side ships slows. A moment later, the second does the same. Their tight symmetry begins to loosen. The forward pair remains in place longer, still shaping the water ahead. But now they are exposed. Without firm flank support, their posture shifts from controlled pressure to visible uncertainty. At 4:39 p.m., the first radio reply finally arrives. United States naval vessel, we are conducting sovereign patrol operations. The wording is careful, incomplete, and defensive. The U.S. response is immediate and precise. You are operating in international waters. Your maneuvers are unsafe. Alter course. No debate, no extended exchange. Just a factual statement. The Seahawk continues orbiting overhead, steady and patient. From the air, the Venezuelan formation starts to come apart. One ship increases lateral separation, another drops back by half a nautical mile. Speeds are no longer matched. The coordinated pressure that defined the encounter only minutes earlier is fading. That is the turning point. Not because of firepower, not because of intimidation, but because the message has landed. The U.S. ship never changed course. It never activated visible force. It never stepped outside the law. And yet the challenge is beginning to collapse. When calm, documented control meets pressure without panic, the opposing side is left with only two choices: openly escalate or begin stepping back. By 4:41 p.m. local time, the shift is unmistakable inside CIC. The Venezuelan formation is breaking. On the left side, the pair is no longer mirroring itself. One vessel continues outward, widening the gap. The second hesitates, then slows by another knot. Their wakes are no longer parallel. On the right side, the same pattern appears. One holds slightly longer, then adjusts course just enough to create more room. The forward pair remains closest, but without coordinated flank support, its position now looks exposed rather than strong. From above, the Seahawk sees the same thing and reports: formation integrity degraded. The helicopter maintains its orbit, calm and deliberate. No low intimidation passes, no abrupt dives, just constant presence. On the Venezuelan decks, behavior changes too. Fewer personnel stand at the rails, activity near forward mounts slows. Some helmets come off, binoculars go up. This is no longer a display of confidence, it is reassessment. At 4:44 p.m., one of the Venezuelan ships, the first to slow earlier, makes a more obvious move. 5 degrees outward, then 10, enough to remove itself completely from the encounter geometry. That is the first clear disengagement. It is recorded immediately. The captain on the U.S. ship watches quietly. He says nothing. This is the defining moment in any gray zone encounter, the point where restraint either works or fails. The Seahawk shifts attention to the remaining ships, especially the forward pair. Their problem is now obvious. To continue alone would turn pressure into plain provocation. To push harder now would cross lines they had carefully stayed below. And to pull away too fast would look like they had lost the initiative. So they hesitate. that hesitation costs them. At 4:47 p.m., one of the forward ships slows by a knot, then another. The distance between it and the U.S. ship begins to widen. Slowly but clearly, the last ship holds longest, maintaining the appearance of resolve. Its bridge remains pointed forward, as though the moment can still be controlled through posture alone. But posture without support does not hold for long. Finally, it turns. Not sharply, not dramatically, just enough to break alignment. What began as 6 ships applying coordinated pressure has become 6 ships moving independently. The challenge is over. The U.S. ship never changed course. It never surged ahead. It never raised a weapon. Its response remained measured from beginning to end. That discipline is what forced the decision on the other side. By 4:51 p.m., separation exceeds 5 nautical miles. The Seahawk widens its orbit, no longer focused on any single vessel. Mission complete. The report comes back, all contacts disengaging, no unsafe maneuvers currently observed. The captain nods once and gives the order to recover the aircraft. As the Seahawk returns to the flight deck, the Venezuelan ships continue drifting away, each on its own exit path. There is no final exchange, no acknowledgement, no apology. None is expected. This is how gray zone encounters end when they end cleanly. Not with celebration, not with dramatic statements, just with distance. Inside CIC, analysts replay the entire sequence in real time. Bearings, speed changes, radio calls, formation shifts. Every action is already preserved. This was not only a tense moment at sea, it was a case study. 6 ships arrived with intent. 6 ships departed without achieving it. And the most important part of the story is what never happened. No collision, no exchange of fire, no breach of international law. The U.S. Navy did not succeed by overpowering the moment. It succeeded by refusing to lose control of it. As the Venezuelan ships fade from radar priority, one final note goes into the ship's log. Challenge resolved through professional conduct and lawful presence. That sentence matters. In modern naval operations, control is not measured by who reacts the loudest. It is measured by who remains composed long enough to make the other side be the first to step away. And on this day, that step has already been taken. By 5:02 p.m. local time, the Caribbean looks much as it did before. Calm water, clear horizon, no visible trace of what just took place. From a distance, nothing seems different. But aboard the U.S. ship, the real work is just beginning. In the Combat Information Center, the crew rewinds everything. Every maneuver, every call, every speed adjustment, every bearing change. Not for drama, but for analysis. Because this was no accident. 6 Venezuelan warships did not converge on a U.S. Navy vessel by chance. Their synchronized acceleration, their approach angles, and their refusal to answer repeated radio hails all point to deliberate intent. This was a calculated test, a challenge designed to pressure without crossing openly into a larger conflict. And it did not succeed, not because the U.S. Navy escalated, but because it did not. That distinction is important. In modern maritime operations, especially in contested spaces, the first tools are rarely force alone. The first tools are visibility, law, training, and discipline. The goal is not to create a fight. The goal is to prevent one while still holding lawful ground. That is exactly what happened here. The U.S. ship never deviated from its legal transit. It maintained course and speed. It issued clear warnings. It documented every unsafe maneuver. And when pressure increased, it answered with presence rather than aggression. Air support without escalation, sensors without targeting, authority without unnecessary noise. That is how gray zone conflict is managed. For Venezuela, the message was impossible to miss. The encounter was recorded from sea and air, fully time-stamped and geolocated. Any further escalation would have been difficult to justify under international law. Any collision would have reflected directly on the side, creating unsafe maneuvering conditions. Pulling back was not symbolic. It was the only practical option left. For the U.S. Navy, the lesson was just as clear. Discipline works. Restraint is not passivity. It is active control. It forces the other side to choose between exposure and withdrawal. This encounter joins a growing pattern seen across the world. From the Caribbean to the South China Sea, modern naval competition often unfolds not through open battle, but in margins of distance, posture, and patience. It is about who blinks first, sometimes without the wider world ever noticing. The most dangerous moment in these encounters is not always the first approach. It is the pause that follows, the instant when both sides realize how close they are and must decide whether pride or professionalism will shape the next move. Here, professionalism prevailed. As the ship returns to routine operations, there is no celebration. Sailors return to their watches. The helicopter is secured. Systems go back to standard monitoring, but the data remains. Far from the Caribbean, analysts will study this encounter carefully. They will examine how quickly coordinated pressure unraveled, which signals mattered, which ones did not, and how air presence changed the behavior of surface vessels. Those details will shape future decisions, not only for one navy, but for many. Because every gray zone encounter teaches both sides something. Venezuela learned that coordinated pressure, when met by calm and fully documented authority, can lose momentum quickly. The U.S. Navy reaffirmed a principle it has relied on for decades. You do not need to act impulsively to control a situation. You need training, rules, lawful confidence, and the discipline to stay inside the line while refusing to yield it. As the sun drops lower over the horizon, the ship continues forward at the same speed and on the same heading. The challenge has ended. The mission continues. And the final question is not really who came out ahead in this encounter. It is what happens in the next one. Because as long as warships operate in contested waters, pressure will return. Tests will come again. And when they do, the outcome will depend not on who appears the most aggressive, but on who remains composed long enough for the other side to step away first. That is the quiet reality of modern naval power, and it rarely becomes a headline. The lesson here is clear. Modern naval dominance is built on discipline, documentation, and control, not on reckless reaction. The U.S. Navy held its position without crossing the line, and that restraint shaped the outcome. If you appreciate thoughtful naval analysis like this, subscribe to Navy Clash for more authentic and professional maritime stories.